Good morning. It's June 20th, 2012. This is David Plaza's Community Conversation Editor for the News Press, and we have the privilege of having with us Jonathan Martin, who is running for Florida House of Representatives District 78. And before we begin with Mr. Martin, editorial board members, for the record, would you please introduce yourselves?
Roy Hyman, former editorial board member.
Pam Grouthouse from Bonita Springs.
Kate Gooderham, Fort Myers.
Dick Calvis, Cape Coral.
And thank you very much, Mr. Martin. Tell us, why are you running for this position?
I'm running for this position for a couple of reasons. My background is currently I'm an assistant state attorney here in the 20th Judicial Circuit, and seeing the things I see every day. For the last 5 years, my entire legal career has been devoted to protecting and keeping Southwest Florida safe. As a prosecutor, I see a lot of abuses in the criminal justice system. I see a lot of people kind of making a mockery of the system. I see abuses as far as financial abuses. The state providing free attorneys to people who can afford it, who can afford legal representation. I see people kind of beating the charges in many cases, many serious cases, because law enforcement is either underfunded or because the criminal statutes need to be updated to reflect changes in crime. My wife is also a small business owner and physical therapist, and starting a small business is very difficult in Florida, more difficult than it should be. When you want to start a business, you want to go do things the right way, you have to hire a lawyer to get your paperwork done, you have to hire an accountant to make sure that you're following all state and federal laws properly. And that's a very big barrier to entry for a lot of people. A lot of people, especially in this economy, that got laid off, maybe downsized their business, that want to start a new venture, are trying to do the right thing, and a lot of times there's a lot of government regulation that prevents them from doing that. So between the criminal justice system and small business owners and people trying to start a business and live the American dream, I see a lot of abuses. And I'm 30 years old, and I figure if I wait too much longer to get involved and go to Tallahassee, that things might be too big of a challenge, and it'll be too late.
One of the challenges for any freshman legislator is that they're term limited, which means that you've got a leadership structure that is heavily hierarchical. How do you play with others, shall we say? You know, can you be effective in Tallahassee?
Absolutely. My entire legal profession, I've shown that I can work with the other side. I can do what's right. I can be principled when principles matter, and then I can compromise when there's an opportunity to compromise. If we both can agree on a certain issue, we can compromise on how to get that issue addressed and how to fix it for the people of Florida. However, if there's an issue that we can't see eye to eye on, I'm not going to compromise my values for that. I will definitely stay strong for the people of Southwest Florida. My values, for the most part, small limited government. Government needs to be held accountable, and people also need to be held accountable for their actions. And I've tried to uphold that as far as my career as a prosecutor. Also, as far as leadership goes, there's only one other prosecutor in Tallahassee with the 120-member House of Representatives and the 40-member Florida Senate. And that person's been for a couple of years. So I would bring in a lot of needed experience. Criminal law is a very large portion of what Florida legislator does. And because I have an expertise in that field, because I'm very experienced in that field, prosecuting a wide variety of cases, I would be an asset to the Republican Party in Tallahassee as far as providing much needed insight into how criminal laws are prosecuted and how they should be written to better allow for arrest and prosecution. And because of that, I would probably be able to rise up in leadership in certain committees much faster because of that needed expertise. And that's it's a subject, it's a topic that's valuable and important to people all over the state. Obviously, with the Trayvon Martin issue up in Sanford, people are looking for expertise in the law, in criminal law, in Tallahassee. And so that's something that would allow me to bring something to Tallahassee. And so when everybody else is bringing their laws to the table, I would be able to be a point person for the Republican Party, even from a very, very early age in the process.
Now, related to that, State Attorney Steve Russell has come to this board a couple of times in the past, and one of his biggest concerns is that the 20th Circuit is constantly underfunded, or it's at the bottom of the list when it comes to funding. How do you think you might be able to work with your colleagues across the state, whether it's in bigger areas like Miami-Dade area or the Panhandle or so forth, to make sure the 20th District, which had been the fastest growing district this past decade, gets the funding it needs to be effective?
Absolutely. We've definitely seen how that lack of funding has hampered law enforcement and prosecution. And I try to use those terms together, law enforcement and prosecution. They're separate parts of the process, but if one is weaker than the other one won't work. Mr. Russell did a really good job with the administration in the state attorney's office here in the 20th Circuit, and with working with other circuits around the state that were also underfunded. I believe the 9th Circuit in Orlando was also underfunded. This past year, we actually were able to not get funding cut when many other circuits around the state did get cut. So that was kudos to Mr. Russell for doing that. But obviously, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If a prosecutor's not in Tallahassee, or if there's very limited prosecutors in Tallahassee, or people with criminal law expertise, then you're not going to address that problem. Obviously, the FPAA is a lobby group up there, and there's numerous law enforcement lobbying groups in Tallahassee. But if you don't have somebody who's constantly negotiating with the legislators or talking to them and meeting with them and letting them know what the issues are, then the wheel's not going to be as squeaky as another wheel, so it's not going to get greased. So I would definitely bring the issues of underfunded state attorneys' offices to the forefront of the legislature to hopefully allow us to finish up the great work that local law enforcement is doing. Yes.
Question, Jonathan. Would you be able to retain your position with the state attorney's office if you were elected?
Yes, I would be able to. I would take leave whenever I needed to have a meeting as far as the state legislature goes. When you have committee meetings in Tallahassee, obviously I just use vacation leave, or when I'm in session, use vacation leave. And the precedent's been set. There's currently a prosecutor from Broward County that's up in Tallahassee that's doing that. Also, Judge Nick Thompson and Judge Bruce Kyle had previously worked for the state attorney's office while they were in Tallahassee, serving their terms.
Follow-up question. Since, as David described, you will be a freshman, and there are a limited number of bills that you're able to bring to the attention of the rest of the legislature, which bills or what issues, I know we talked about prosecution, but what specific issues would you like to see addressed that would perhaps see the light of day once it gets up to Tallahassee?
Oh, from reading the front page of the News Press today, this has been an ongoing issue since January. Violent murders are just taking place in Fort Myers specifically. It's absolutely tragic. We see that, for a large part, it's people of an underrepresented community in Fort Myers that are victims of these crimes. And we've seen I believe Doug Baker has been outspoken about one of the main issues with prosecuting these crimes or investigating them is the community not coming forward. A lot of times people don't come forward because, not because they don't want to do the right thing, but there's more pressure to stay quiet than to do the right thing. So one of the things that would help is making it a crime not to come forward if you know of something that happened, and make the crime proportional to the crime that was committed that you're withholding evidence on. And what that would do is a lot of times give people the opportunity, and I've dealt with many witnesses prosecuting violent crimes and dealt with witnesses that don't want to come forward. Even victims don't want to come forward a lot of times, and they're the ones that had tragic things take place to them. What it would do is give them the opportunity to tell the defendant's family who's pressuring them, the defendant's friends, maybe the defendant themselves, say, look, I'm going to go to prison if I don't testify. Because right now they have really no excuse other than they're breaking the code of silence. So I think that would be a valuable tool, and I think that's something very important that needs to take place. Because we see with the Trayvon Martin case up in Sanford, we see a lot of witnesses, all the scrutiny they're getting. People are looking for their names and their addresses, and they have the great potential to be tampered with, not by the defendant's family or the victim's family, but just by people in the community. And there needs to be something that they can then say, hey, I'm going to go to prison if I don't help out, or if I don't just tell them what happened, as opposed to, like I said, the code of silence that just, well, don't say anything and it'll all go away and no one will get in trouble.
One of the largest